The first three steps the new president should do in foreign policy domain, they stem from his constitutional powers. And actually, as an anti-establishment candidate, he should have done this previously, maybe between two rounds during debates. The first step, not to hide his foreign policy visions, or maybe foreign policy doctrine if he has such a document. Because at the moment we see there is no clear comprehensive strategy how to move ahead to the questions which are raised during his campaign as promises, as calls, and so on and so forth. So he has to go off the script of presidential campaign, to devirtualize and to not try to flirt with all group of his constituency. It's a high time he delivered on his foreign policy visions. And now, being in 2-3 weeks after the presidential campaign vote, after the elections day, we still do not have any clue about strategy, about tactics of his foreign policy performance. And it's not only our concern, in concern of our Western partners, which want to see what would be the policy with Russia, what would be the renovation of Normandy format, if any, and what would be the destiny of our Euro-integration reforms process. The second step is to show his team which will be assisting him in performing his foreign policy agenda. Because at the moment it seems like a little bit of schizophrenia when some issues are addressed by Zelensky by video blog and some are by mysterious takes of Zelensky team. And even there is no certainty that he was consulted on that. At the same time, there is a handful of visionary articles about foreign policy by former and acting diplomats, which propose some actions how to proceed with different areas of our relations with our partners and with our neighbors. But again, there is no clue whether it's only their personal visions or they were consulted or even shared by President Zelensky. In this regard, we want to see some faces, new, already familiar, which would lead foreign policy team in presidential administration, in the MFA, in other institutions and in government at large. It will assist us to understand what is the essence of his foreign policy. The third step, which is closely connected to previous two, is to demonstrate his short-term perspective, his action plan on the foreign policy. What should be the first visits, the first meetings, the first formats for resolution of conflict? I think these questions are essential to understand in which domain there is a continuity with Poroshenko's legacy and in which domain we should expect quite new approaches which might bring new fruits to our relations with neighbors and with countering hybrid Russian aggression. It was one of the strongest parts of foreign policy of Poroshenko's team, the very strong support for Ukrainian territorial integrity and sovereignty from our Western partners. I think that this track should be preserved. And from the side of our partners, we do expect the help and assistance on all the layers we already established. On the layer of preserving sanctions regime against Russia, on the layer of abiding by the occupation policy of Crimea, on the layer of helping with with lethal weapon, and of course with financial assistance, how to rebuild our country and how to push our reforms forward. When it comes to European integration, nothing is written in the stone. It is true that in recent years Ukraine has been a leader in European integration and approximation process when it comes to different association countries. But there are different scenarios when the situation can get worse. And we could see in our neighbors' stories. For example, when it comes to Moldova, we see now that the president is not that optimistic about the European track. He wants to revisit association agreement. He wants to change some relations with European Union when it comes to economy, when it comes to political track. So basically, it's possible, and it's a big challenge for Ukraine if there is a change in our foreign policy orientation. Although Mr. Zelensky confirmed that European track or European perspective for us is a priority in foreign policy. But now it's only the claim, and we do not have the arguments, and we do not have details about his action plan in this regard. The second part, when the progress on delivering reforms and implementing our obligation is low, we could expect the diminishing of interest from our European partners. This is also a challenge, although the track is the same, the progress is lower, and less for less, we have less support from our friends from the European Union. And the third part, when there is a necessity for balancing between Russia and European Union, which is the case for example, for Armenia or Belarus, they will see that our obligations and our commitments in European integration could be scaled down just to balance our relations or not to harm our relations with Russia. And I think it's also a challenge we should try to avoid during presidential term of Mr. Zelensky.